so I can catch up to you. You shake.
Good morning and welcome to our March 27th, 2023, 9 o'clock strategic planning meeting. Please let the record reflect that we've got 4 commissioners in the conference room. Commissioner Kearns, Commissioner French, Commissioner Jordan, and myself. Commissioner Waldrop is planning to join us maybe later, but she is away on county business. And I think Scott Simmons is zooming in from his office this morning. So, and I see we're going to start with Mike Burgess. So Mike, I see you up there. Go ahead and take it away.
Yes, good morning, commissioners. Sorry to have missed you last week, but want to catch up on a few things. Again, back to the point session where we're not going to be doing a lot of new business other than talking about the budgets. Want to update you on some bills, kind of run through what was in the Senate budgets, and then set the table that we're going to see the House budgets this week. I'd sent you a message in the middle of the week email, so some of this might be a repeat of that, but early last week, the kind of the final step before the budgets were released on the Senate side was the state's revenue forecast that projected what I would call a decrease in an increase. I think we had talked in the past about how the state had been having really, really good financial success, lots of revenue coming in, and we're starting to see the slowing of that. An analogy I used, and it is a gross oversimplification, but imagine you had $50 and then next week you thought you were going to have 55, but you really end up with only 52. That's kind of what happened to the legislature. And again, that is an oversimplification, but just kind of trying to illustrate that it was a decrease in the increase of the budget. That does have ramifications within the capital budget for bonding capacity, and then within the operating budget as well. Just some broader observations within the operating, and then we'll move to the capital. This was, again, just the Senate's proposal. We'll see the House proposals this week. The Senate proposal did not contain any new taxes, but there's kind of some smaller like fee increase type things that go on within the budget, but no general tax increase. Spending levels were still good as far as dollars that flow to the counties, just broadly for criminal justice and any number of the other programs. We did not see cuts in those across the board. Given this economic condition of the state, that might be something we'll be talking about in the fall. But as of right now, we didn't see that. Then within the how about I just do this since I'm talking operating budget. On the bottom of that page, there's a handful of items there that I called out that have Spokane impact. Like literally, if you do a word search within the budget, search Spokane, there's about 30 different references. Some of them are duplicative. So say that 2.4 million. And then the 2.2 million, the first two there. The word Spokane is mentioned several times in those provisos, so that's why I didn't list out all 30. But those are all things that have been in the budget in the past, just kind of reiterating that they are there again. Thought you'd like to know that there's a large chunk there for the continued development of the medical school, and then the public health assistance dollars. The proviso there, the second one, the 2.2 million to reduce the utilization at the Eastern State, that was not in the governor's budget. Hasn't been the last handful of years, but we have good allies there in the Senate, and that's one of the proviso requests that we made to be included. I would anticipate the House budget would mirror most of these. I don't know that these would be something that are, something just the Senate wants as opposed to the House, because they're almost carry forwards from what other budgets have had in the past. Do you have any questions about the operating budget beyond just those items? Okay, I'll move on to the capital. This is a long list of items, things that were in the Spokane region, but the top 3, of course, were specific to our legislative agenda. There was one item on our agenda that did not receive funding. That was for the fairgrounds. I don't know if I'm calling it ventilation is the right thing, but that was one of the formal requests we made. But that request went in on the House side, so I'm not super concerned that we didn't see it on in the Senate budget. When we get the House capital budget, we'll do the comparison. But there was the dollars for the larger stadium kind of coalition. That's the 5.8 million. That 543,000 is money that was left over from last biennium. You'll remember there was a $750,000 allocation to the stadium project that we put in a request in conjunction with the city of Spokane Valley. So that is a carry forward of those dollars. And then the last there, that 2.5 million Fairchild, it's listed as defense community compatibility. And Commissioner French, Victoria had reached out to me about, is that the specific amount for, I believe the term is the Aero Park?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Yeah, it's the Aero Mobile Home Park, and my latest information tells me that project is going to come in an appraisal around 3.4, and the 2.4 and the 2.5. What is it? 2.5 and the 1.9 we have will get us to 3.4. So that'll cover Aero Mobile Home Park, but it won't cover any of the other parks as they become available. So we'll just have to time that and continue working through the legislature.
And so then, Commissioner, the question is, it couldn't be for another park, right? Like the Aero's the next one in the queue.
Aero's the next one in the queue.
Okay.
We've got a willing seller, a willing buyer, and we just are finalizing negotiations on price, but everything that I've been told so far tells me we're going to be in that 3-4.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure, because the capital budget doesn't always go into that specificity of the actual park itself. So if there's any reason I hear otherwise, I will let you know, but assuming that those dollars line up. And then there's a list there, commissioners. I'm sure some of those are probably projects that you all are familiar with more than I am. The 500,000 for the airport, the third from the bottom there, is for the transloader facility. But again, just wanted to list those out that were call outs in Spokane. So like I said, the process in the House will be now they will have a budget come out with a similar list. I'll cross check that, and we will go over that next Monday to see what's in between the two. Most of these on this longer list are what I would call community projects. Those are the member requests. Those usually stay in between the two budgets as they merge them together, because the budget leaders leave capacity to accommodate the requests within either the House or the Senate. So I say usually, doesn't always work out that way. But if there's a project that you know about that was being requested beyond things that we talked of as a county and they're not listed, I wouldn't be too concerned yet. Let's wait and see what the House budget looks like first. Don't know if you have any questions about that project list, commissioners.
I'm not seeing any, so
Okay. Then next, we haven't seen transportation budgets yet either, so don't expect a huge boost there because of the revenue package from last year, but there'll probably be some shifting around. There was, of course, the worry about the delay in the north-south and other projects. So we'll have to see what those turn out to be. And then the last thing, just wanted to run through this bill list that we've been working off of, since for the last, basically since session, as we started to narrow it down. Just updates on these. The apprenticeship utilization bill has moved all the way through that. Well, let me backtrack here for a second. We're approaching the March 29th policy committee cutoff. So this is the day that House policy bills have to be out of the Senate committee, and then vice versa. And then we will get to the fiscal committee cutoff, which is April 4th. So that's let's just for argument's sake say House Bill 1050 would have cost money. It would have been referred to a Ways and Means, would have to have been out of Ways and Means, though that bill itself did not cost money, but just for example. But 1050 has moved to the Senate floor calendar. 1181 is the GMA climate bill, as I've nicknamed it, and others have. It's awaiting action in the Ways and Means Committee. It did have a hearing last week, and we're still working with others on the language around the capital facilities plan. So continue to work that amendment process as the bill, hopefully as it leaves the Ways and Means Committee. 1460s, the DNR land bill, also waiting Ways and Means action, which is fine because again, it's subject to that April 4th cutoff. And then same with 1515, that's the WASAC priority on the behavioral health contracts. The broadband map bill, it was voted on and moved out of committee. It says SREC COM. It just, the system hasn't caught up in terms of updating it, but it did receive executive action last week. The prejudgment interest bill 5059, I've left that on because it could have potentially had budget impact, but that bill was not referenced in the Senate budget. So I don't really see it moving forward, but I'll leave it on the list because stranger things have happened. 5198, the mobile home community sales bill. Remember, this has to have that kind of exemption language for us, I guess is another way to put it. That bill has moved from the House Policy Committee. And so we'll have to keep keeping an eye on that as well. The vehicular pursuit bill, a lot of press coverage of that. The bill, as I understand it, was scheduled for executive action this week in the House committee, but that has to be done by the 29th. The PCB bill, that bill changed significantly in the process by which the Department of Ecology would regulate PCBs, but won't be impactful necessarily to the county and its support of the bill. Still aims to deal with PCBs, but there were some legal questions surrounding the original bill. Ecology testified that they weren't clear that the original language would have withstood a legal challenge. This bill is an attempt to solve that issue. Senate Bill 5440, that's the competency evaluation bill, awaiting a committee vote in the House Policy Committee. And then 5536, that's the reaction to the Blake bill, also needs to be voted from committee this week. The Senate budget did include a significant amount of money to deal with the Blake issue and some of the costs associated with, I think, resentencing folks and then dealing with the cost incurred by the decision that was made a few years ago. Then lastly, the county commissioner's salary bill is moving along. It's on the floor calendar in the Senate, or excuse me, in the House.
Two questions for you, Mike.
Sure.
On the carbon tax, is the last I heard, the funding from that was going to go into transportation projects. Is that still the case? Or have you heard anything different in terms of them diverting those funds somewhere else? And then the other question is, now the Supreme Court has ruled on the capital gains tax. It was my understanding those funds were going to go to support child care initiatives. And I don't know whether that is still the priority or has that shifted as well since their revenue expectation was less than they were hoping.
So on the carbon tax, Commissioner, so yes, some of it went to transportation. Some of it went to a lot of other projects, carbon sequestration, all kinds of things. I don't know that the dollars were diverted. Let me ask around and get back to you on that. What I would say though, is that the auction, you might have heard that there was going to be the auction for the allowances, as they call it. That the first auction was a couple of weeks ago now, and it raised almost double the money that they thought it would. And there's 4 auctions a year. So depending on who you believe, there could be significant leftover dollars in those in carbon allocation revenue or in the auction revenue. That is not an area I'm very well versed in. So I don't want to say much more because I don't know how accurate it would be, but I do know that the first auction resulted in pretty significant amount of money. So that's a long way, Commissioner, of me saying that I don't know that they had to do any shifts or grab money from other places to spend on carbon priorities, carbon reduction priorities, because there was so much money from the original auction. But I will
I know that the budget,
sure. Sorry.
The governor's budget had underfunded transportation needs in the state, and I had heard last week, but my source was not all that reliable, that there was a debate about whether that the carbon sale auction, which did generate more money, more than they anticipated, if that was going to stay with transportation or whether they were going to flex it into the general fund and stuff. And so I'll be over in Olympia Wednesday, Thursday for LSC. I'll find out later on this week if there's been any movement on that. But I'm just curious what you were hearing.
But like I said, I know some folks that work in that area pretty closely. So I'll ask around and get back to you, and we can talk about it next week. And then if I hope to see you when you're here this week, we could check in about it as well. Then the second question you asked was about the capital gains tax.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, Commissioner, that those dollars were baked into their revenue projections because the court had said that the state should keep collecting the tax. So I need to verify this, but my understanding is from a budgeting standpoint, it would be situation normal, if that makes sense.
Well, it's situation normal as far as their budgeting process. My question is, have you heard any conversation about them taking those funds and spending them somewhere else other than childcare because their expectation of growth wasn't as robust as they thought it was going to be?
I have not heard that, but I will ask around.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. That's it for me, commissioners. Like I said, we'll have, budgets come out this week on the House side, and we'll have some more information in terms of projects and other spending priorities within the two.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. As always, give me a call if you need anything, but I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye.
Okay, next up is Mike Sparkler.
Good morning, Commissioners. Today I'm here to brief you on a contract for transport services. It's a professional agreement. It's P13214 for fugitive transport services as requested by the Spokane Sheriff Office. The purpose of the agreement would be to provide for fugitive justice transports throughout the United States and return them to Spokane for prosecution. Presently, the Spokane County Sheriff's Office is utilizing their detectives for the purpose, and it's costly and taking them away from their necessary work as detectives for it. So basically what will happen is they'll determine that they've got a fugitive in another state. The prosecutors will make notification to the jail. The jail will arrange services for it. They'll go down and pick it up. They'll bring it back and detain them in Spokane County Jail, and then they'll be here for prosecution from that point. So the Spokane corrections officers cannot go out of the state of Washington. This is what's causing it. And again, so that it has to be done by a law enforcement officer to cross the boundaries of Washington State. Well, on the financial side, they'll invoice detention services. Budget will be made available to detention services for this purpose. The total contract value is not to exceed 40 trips or 300,000, and it's based on a trip usage. The last time that the Sheriff's Office used this service, it cost $7,520, and so utilizing that as the amount, I just went through 10 to 40 trips to see how much it would be for approximately how many trips they would. I have no idea how many they're going to need. I just went out to 40 to give them an estimate to not exceed. I'm sure.
I don't think any questions about it or anything like that. I don't have anything to add.
So it sounds like, I guess I'll ask the question. So the Sheriff's Department has been looking towards this.
Sure. Like you said, right now, our detectives have to go do it. So we, book flights and you gotta fly down to Florida or wherever and escort the person back. So it takes away, 3-4 days of work from the detectives and, you send 2 detectives out of 8, that's a pretty big hit to the unit. So, that's kind of what we're looking at. It's time saving and so our detectives can keep doing their work. And it costs about the same amount to send them there anyway, so.
And does it transfer the liability? Is the liability on this company then
Yes,
until the
Yeah,
person
it-
is in our
it's included in
custody?
the contract and under the scope of work. And there is certain guidelines they have to follow that is also included in the contract. So, okay, you'll see it on next Tuesday's consent agenda.
Is it already budgeted for, or what's the
You
source
use,
of funding?
I talked to Tessa in the budget department, they're gonna use it out of the existing detention services budget. Again, we don't know the total value of it. It could be 10 trips for the rest of the year, it could be this, so we're just gonna kind of play it by ear this one, and then we'll have something more formal that we're gonna include in the budget next year. Budget cycle. Question?
Great,
All right, thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Yep.
thank you. And Kevin, are you gonna stay around for the one of, there's item F today?
What is it? I'm sorry.
I think,
Nine system.
Oh, the Rig 9 is, I think Justin's coming over.
okay, Justin and Mark,
Yeah,
okay,
and I'll probably come back over with him.
Okay. perfect, thank you.
Good morning.
Good,
How is everybody today?
how are you?
Awesome. Gonna be beautiful weather this week. Looking forward to it.
Should be.
So I've got a few items for you today. I'll just jump right in.
Well, the nice weather hasn't started yet.
Well,
It's
Okay.
coming.
We got
Coming.
sunshine.
Just very optimistic. The first item I've got for you is a proposed road vacation, Pinewood Road. You can see on the map that it is up by Whitworth College, actually dead ends into Whitworth College campus. Over the years, Whitworth has acquired all the property surrounding this little piece of road, and it just, they petitioned to have it vacated and basically gonna redevelop it as part of their campus. The county engineer does not see any future public need for this roadway and is recommending that the board approve it when they get to see it. Any questions on that one? All right, so the next two are dealing with the Liberty Lake TIF lift area. But a representative here from Liberty Lake can introduce himself.
Kyle Dixon, Finance Director. Great to be here.
Nice to meet you.
So I'm gonna do a little bit of a short synopsis before I really get into the details of these particular pieces of the area itself. So in the mid-2000s, Spokane County created as the sponsoring agency, the Spokane County River District Revenue Development Area at Liberty Lake. So it has a
acronym again?
RDA is the acronym, which is, pretty good. We all refer to it as the Liberty Lake TIF lift just because that seems easier. It has a TIF component for financing and a lift component for financing, so that's pretty unique actually. Over the years, it has had a bunch of projects that got reimbursed from the funds that build up in these accounts. Spokane County Treasurer, keeps track of the revenues. As they go along, the proponents work with the city of Liberty Lake to propose projects. The proponent builds the project and then brings the reimbursement request back here to the county. The role of Public Works has been to review those requests and to see that they meet the requirements. And actually, those requirements in 2015 were formalized by the board. So the protocols and the procedures of how we approve them, how we review them was all given a detailed process by the board, which we followed. So that's what we're here for today, is to go through a couple of these projects. And just to show, part of the review process are things like, it has to be on Liberty Lake's capital facilities plan, has to be compatible with the comprehensive plan. They have to pay prevailing wages, things of this nature. And we go through the checklist and make sure that they have met all of those requirements. And both of the ones that we have today, we have completed our review and they are being brought forward with our recommendation that the board approve them. So the first one here is an extension of Indiana, and it also has a water line. So when you see these, you will see a lot of paperwork. There's a large submittal request for reimbursement. We have our staff report, a resolution that approves the whole thing, and then there's a dedication agreement that board also would sign if they move this forward. And then there's these bills of sale that sort of finalize the transfer from the proponent to the entity that will own this. So the roads go to Liberty Lake City, the water goes to Liberty Lake Sewer and Water, that kind of thing. So there's plenty of digital paperwork in that comes along with these. So the next, we can move on to the next one, which is a intersection and traffic signal. So the first one, that street and roads, about 1.3 million, and then this traffic signal is about 500,000. So that was a lot. I compressed it all down into a little chunk. Do you have any questions?
So, on the traffic signal, 500,000 seems to be light for a traffic signal. Are we getting money from somewhere else, or is that something unique about that traffic signal that makes it cheaper?
So the city has a developer that they work with in relation to the TIF and LIF. And so they're able to go out and use their procurement abilities that are a lot of times more beneficial than if the city were to go out and solicit bids. And so you'll see a lot of these. We would plan, I think we planned this cost to be around 750,000, and with the understanding that Greenstone is our development partner, they were able to get a much better price for that.
Yeah, the 750 is what we're used to and stuff, and so that's why I was questioning that. Okay, great, thanks.
And the question, reason why a traffic light versus a roundabout, because kind of along that line, you guys have roundabouts.
We do, and so a little bit further down Harvard, you will see maybe in the next 2 or 3 years, you'll see a roundabout at a street just north of that, it's Wellington Street. And there was some rationale, and it escapes me right now, because the city, the design standards are roundabouts whenever possible. And for pedestrian safety measures, they will prefer a traffic signal to a roundabout in certain scenarios, and that fit the category for this. So normally, when we are designing intersections, the roundabouts come first, and if there's any safety issues, then the traffic signals put.
What are the costs of these projects? And if I missed it, I apologize.
Yeah, so this one's about 521,000, the intersection, and the street and water line is 1.3 million. Okay, so those come out of the TIF account 30%, and the LIFT account 70% is the normal split.
And this is all within the city of Liberty Lake.
Right, the actual area created is mostly within the city of Liberty Lake. There is a small portion in unincorporated Spokane County that has not had any projects, to my understanding. But yes, that's correct.
And there's money in there to cover these.
Yes, there's money in to cover these. And there is a list of projects coming up that are expected to use these. The city has planned this out, and has knows what the revenues will be and what the future projects coming through will be. So yeah, there is. We don't bring it forward. That's one of the checks. Does the money exist?
Very good.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. There is a ton of, Commissioner, there is a lot of paperwork that you will see. I brought for the briefing just small pictures. We'll upload it at the Civic Clerk. There is a lot of detail, probably too much detail, but that will be there for your review prior to it being voted on. I can bring it to you earlier if you would like to see it.
Can you send me the list of the check marks, just because I'm seeing all this for the first time?
Absolutely.
I wouldn't mind seeing things ahead of time just for familiarity.
Absolutely, I would do that, yes.
I'm just, I guess for clarification, so this has been something that happened 2014, is that?
No, 2007, I think, is when it officially started, yeah.
So this was already an arrangement set up with the city of Liberty Lake. Because if I'm correct, City of Liberty Lake can't actually do the TIF. The city has to be the one to sponsor that TIF.
The county is the sponsoring agency for the region, yes, that's correct.
So once it's already approved, then it's just going through all the motions that need to be done for the city of Liberty Lake. And so they're the ones that, really manage it, and take care of all of that. And they're the ones determining the projects and all that. We're not determining the projects unless it came into the inappropriate area. So
Yeah, that's
it
a
comes
good,
back here for approval.
it just comes back here first. We're really just approving the funds to go back to them.
The release of funds, because the developers already spent it. So it's a reimbursement TIF. So we're not doing anything up front. The developer has to spend all the money, put the improvements in. They have to be accepted. Once they're accepted, then they get reimbursed for it and stuff. And so that's the big check and balance of this thing is it's a reimbursement TIF as opposed to some of the others that we've done, which are, the county investing with the expectation of being reimbursed. Here, the developers investing all of their money ahead of time.
and these funds are being dedicated for this sole purpose. That's what they were created to do. And we do have, and I'll send it to you, a very thorough process to vet that these are meeting the requirements as the area was set up to accomplish, which is economic development.
With the creation of TIFs and LIFs, you have a list of projects that are eligible to be reimbursed for. And so all of the project lists and stuff are done when you create the TIF, and then they just have to construct them out over a period of time.
How does the identification or the prioritizing of what you actually fund work within that list?
That's determined by the city of Liberty.
City and developer driven.
Yeah.
And so we plan in 3-year increments on that bigger list. We plan in 3-year increments and the city council passes. So over the course of 2023 through 2026, we're gonna have this, and this done, and we approve those to be moved forward.
So those aren't our decisions. Our
Right.
decisions are just to ensure that everything's been properly handled. Hence the paperwork. Hence the paper.
A lot of paperwork,
Okay. Thank you.
of course.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you both. Thank you,
Thank you,
Kyle,
absolutely, yeah.
for coming. Appreciate it. Okay, then that's gonna take us to Rob. You guys came in just at the right time. I apologize that learning new names, so Amy.
Amy Sumner. Amy is our Water Resources Manager. Good morning, everyone. Rob Lindsay and Amy Sumner talk about water rights again this morning. And I'm going to just speak for a couple minutes up front to make sure that we're clear about which water resource we're talking about today. And then Amy's going to dive into the details of the purpose of the briefing and what our action item is. And so I'm just going to remind everybody that the last few times we've come, we've talked about 3 distinctly different water right or water resources that the county is managing. The first of which is the Salties water right. We're not talking about that today. That's a standalone water right that we own. The second resource is that watershed plan that I've mentioned a couple times, and that Commissioner Kearns has participated on the development of that. And that's that commitment, that debit that we spoke of. And our most recent briefing was for a grant opportunity where Ecology is going to buy a water right. We're working with them, and they'll put it into trust against that watershed plan. Okay, we're not talking about that today either. What we are talking about today is our Wyra 55 water bank, which is a water right that we own. We purchased a couple different water rights up in the Deer Park area. We own it. We bought it actually even before Hearst decision was happening. And the idea was that we were going to use that water right for individual domestic users who would come to us and they want to build their home on their private land. and they could buy a water right from us. We would buy a larger water right, break it up into smaller pieces, and then sell it. Okay. With the Hearst solution, if you will, the state made it even easier than that for most people to do this, to develop individual lands. There are people that are actually able to just write a check. And so what we're finding is that developers were wanting to build like rural subdivisions, if you will, collections of homes where you could not use the permit exempt well. They've come to us asking for this water, and it's actually worked out pretty well. So Amy's going to give a brief presentation on this water bank and the activities in the bank to date and the opportunity that is being presented to us today. So, Amy?
Thank you, Ron. So I have a figure up there that shows you our approved mitigation area, and that is the boundary where we are allowed to sell water rights through our mitigation bank. And it kind of provides a snapshot of where properties are located that have purchased mitigation certificates. We have about 9 individual properties throughout the watershed. And then, as you can see, there are 2 rural subdivisions towards the top near Deer Park. The first subdivision being the Kootenai properties. They started working with us in 2020 to get mitigation certificates from the water bank, and they were the first subdivision that went through this whole same process. The one closer to the top in red is the Gilliam Lane properties, which we'll talk about today. Next slide, please. So the Gilliam Lane properties include about 44 parcels that will require 42 acre-feet from our water bank. The revenue that we generated from these certificates, because the developers pay up front, has been about $174,000. And we need to get a general water right through Ecology in order to issue the certificates. We've been working with Ecology over the last year to make sure the application is where they need it to be in order to approve it. So what we're asking from the board today is to authorize our Senior Public Works Director to submit the water right application on our behalf, and that will require a $50 fee, which we do collect through that revenue. Questions?
I think this was kind of the purpose of getting these, was to be able to then allow.
Right, yeah. You know, I guess I would offer by saying that this general permit, the reason why an individual could still come to us if they wanted to and buy one of those mitigation certificates. Most people don't, because it's less expensive to just write a check to the state. The reason why we're doing this general permit is because we're actually repurposing the water from an individual domestic use to this rural subdivision use. Part of this process involves doing a hydrogeologic study. So we're not just processing paperwork and saying, okay, we can put 64 wells on this square mile. We actually have to perform hydrogeologic modeling and demonstrate that those withdrawals from those new wells going in for this rural subdivision will not impair existing uses. Okay, and because we get a lot of phone calls about that. The neighbors call because they're concerned about all these wells going in. So we're not doing this blind. We're actually performing hydrogeologic inquiry ahead of these developments.
Is that a state requirement, or and how does that process work?
Well, it's a requirement of water right law, which basically says issuing any new water right uses cannot impair any existing uses. So that's where it comes in. It comes in under the auspices of water law at that point.
And the study that we submitted for this particular development is provided to Ecology as part of our draft permit application. So they reviewed that, provided some comments, and made sure that we were doing it appropriately.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none.
Just we really appreciate your support. You know, this water bank, we were able to establish through the generosity of this board, and it's a good resource for the county. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, Heather, you're up next.
Charts.
Thank you,
Monday
yes.
morning charts.
Good morning. Just wanted to give you guys an update where we were at with the final RFP under the emergency rental assistance. Two additional flexibilities that we were given. We opened that RFP on February 2nd. It closed on the 23rd. It has been scored. We only had one applicant, which was SNAP for their Pine Villa project. So the 1.255 million will actually close the gap and fully fund their Pine Villa project. So for Commissioner Jordan, since you weren't here, when we did this, the total award on the emergency rental assistance originally was the just a little over 5 million. And in November, they added, or October maybe, they added additional flexibilities that allowed us to use part of the funds for towards domestic violence as well as affordable housing. But we had to allocate a certain portion before we could move to using any portion of that towards the affordable housing. Overall, we have spent 85% of the rental assistance that has come into the county between the Community Services Department and the Treasury Direct rental assistance that has come.
So can you tell me a little bit about the Pine Villa, what project that is?
So they are going to develop a 50-unit affordable housing project, and it's a rehab project because currently it was built in, the current project house was built in 1971 and is home to 123 people. So they have they've taken out a loan to close their funding gap. They have they got some Commerce Home funds, they got some housing trust funds, and a SNAP weatherization project, and then their $6.5 million mortgage on that project. So it will house, it does house some Section 8 and 13 additional units have affordable rents, and it has a 50-year covenant.
Where is it located?
33 East Graves Road.
So that's up north.
Yes, it is north somewhere.
Okay.
That would be you, wouldn't it?
No, I think it's
Is it Amber?
East Graves. It's 33. I think that might be Chris.
Right off of Division Street.
Yeah, Graves is just south of Hawthorne, within a few blocks of Hawthorne.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
They had applied for ARP and they were the highest scoring project that did not receive funding, just based on how much funding we had. They were the first one after the cutoff to be funded. So they scored well for regular ARP, and being the only applicant for this flexibility, it fits nicely into that metrics also.
So these are general questions and not specific to this, but of the rental assistance money that we have provided to SNAP, whether it was CARES or or state money or whatever, how much remains of those funds we allocated? And has the demand for them subsided to the point where we might not be able to spend the money we have left? And the reason I ask is because a couple of the counties have been in this situation and ended up getting the money clawed back. And so I'm just kind of trying to get my hands around where do we stand in that situation, and have we met the demand and we have surplus funds? We've not met the demand and there's still projects in process for being funded. I don't expect you to know that right now, but if you could give me a little email kind of shot to let me know, that would be great.
According to SNAP, they do have all of what we have given them is basically in the hopper. They have applications that are pending, and they do expect to have everything that we've given them fully exhausted. They have still some TRAP 2.0. That's about 93% spent at this point. So that's almost exhausted. They're spending that first because the TRAP and the ERAP 2.0 both end in June. So they're still spending that before they go to the ERA 2. The ERAP 2.0 is about 65% spent at this time, but they've still assured us that between those three funding buckets with the applications they have in the hopper, they will fully spend all three funding buckets.
Okay. So whatever we have received, we will have exhausted within the time period allotted for getting that money out.
Correct.
So.
And we've just allocated the 502 to the YMCA. That contract was just signed in the last 2 months.
So I'll share with my fellow commissioner, I have a couple rental properties inside the city where the tenants have requested assistance from the city. One has taken 6 months to get approved. The other one is 8 months to get approved. And SNAP is just doing a great job compared to what the city is doing, because as a landlord, waiting 6 to 8 months for that is just nonsense because of inefficiencies from either the city and or their contractor and all of the other requirements that the city put on it that we did not. So I just wanted to share that with the board. But, SNAP's doing a really good job for us.
They got some pretty good kudos, I wanna say, I don't know, fall of last year, maybe like that. I think the Inlander did a pretty good story kind of talking about the differences in the jurisdictions as far as the rental assistance. And yeah, SNAP just continues to impress with how well they're getting the money out there. They're performing better than some other organizations.
Then I just want to clarify, did we have some dollars clawed back? I thought we did.
We did, because our original amount was, under the emergency rental assistance too, was a little over 7 million. We just had not received those funds. But because we had not allocated all of those, we only allocated to SNAP what we had received to date. And because we had not allocated more than we had received to date, we did receive a clawback of the 2.1 million.
So they were doing that to counties all across the state.
All
across the nation. So
Well,
it was just frustrating that you try to play by their rules and then they change the rules. And so, because you obviously, trying to be fiscally sound, we don't want to allocate until we know we've got the dollars. And so then for them to do that, and they did it across the nation. So a little frustration.
But wasn't there part of that where had we tried to spend or allocate those dollars that were clawed back, we were at risk of losing more money from another pot. So we were spending those dollars to get more money on the street. So we were going to lose money either way. We lost sort of the least amount of money, I think. So
correct.
But I think the difference between what we did, and I'll use Yakima County as a great example. They had received the money in their bank account, ended up having to write a check back to the state to send the money back. and stuff, and I don't think we've had that
No,
situation.
we did not have to do that.
We have just not spent what we were eligible for,
Correct.
but we never received it.
Correct.
Where Yakima and a couple other counties actually had to cut a check and send money back.
They reduced our allotment essentially.
Yeah, right,
Never received it.
went to King County.
Is this ERA, is this federal?
Yes, the emergency rental assistance 1 and 2 came direct to us from Treasury. Then we had the emergency rent assistance program, which is ERAP, and Treasury rent assistance program, TRAP. Those both came from Treasury to the state, so those came through the Department of Commerce. And so those programs ended sooner than our Treasury dollars ended, which is why we ended up in the situation with the ERA2 of losing those funds, because the ERAP and the TRAPs, those ended in June and December of 21, and then the 2.0s end in June of this year. So obviously we went to spending those funds before we went to ERA2, which don't end until 2025.
And we don't anticipate getting any of those again because those were all COVID emergency funds.
Right. So the 5 million, is that the 2 ERA2?
Correct.
Okay, and then when you say they added flexibility to allow some to go towards domestic violence, is that why the YWCA then came in?
Correct.
So there's an action item now to approve an RFP.
Yes, that will be on next week's agenda, or
2 weeks
the
out.
11th agenda.
And that is just for the SNAP.
Okay.
So the ERAP and the CRAP programs are now dinosaurs.
Oh, so happy to have you back.
Throw it in there.
We missed the dad jokes. Okay,
Other questions?
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
It's an unfortunate acronym, CRAP.
Okay, so next we have Arthur, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners. Arthur Witten, Spokane County Treasurer's Office, here today to provide just a short briefing on the Treasurer's annual excess and refund report. Each year by RCW, the Treasurer submits to the Commissioners lists of excess and refund payments we made in the prior year. And currently that action item by the board is scheduled for Tuesday, April 11th on the consent agenda to accept that list. But each year our office bills and collects over $800 million of property taxes on behalf of the county, cities, towns, and other taxing districts. And from time to time, we do return some of that to the taxpayers. That takes two forms. First, excess payments, which is you paid us too much. You paid us more than your bill was, you forgot you sent a check, and you send a second one, and we'll catch that in our system and we'll return that excess to you. The second form is in refunds, which is you paid more than you owed, meaning you paid us and then later your tax liability was actually reduced, and that's most commonly from the senior exemption program. So if you pay and then later you're approved for the program and your tax bill overall comes down, we'll refund that difference to you. So in total, that amount for 2022 is $4.1 million, and happy to answer any questions.
Which reason has more people in it? Is it a senior property tax exemption coming late, or is it people sending in more?
So the breakdown for last year is 2.3 million in refunds and 1.8 in excess, and that's pretty standard.
Okay.
So it's more for refunds, and within the refund category, it's overwhelmingly someone got an exemption.
And those exemptions, senior exemptions are all determined, the rules, regulations, the amounts are all determined by the state. We don't have anything to do with that here in
Spokane County does not set those income limits. That's a matter of the state legislature. The program's administered by the county assessor, and then we're responsible for rebilling when those are approved.
You may not be able to answer this, but do we have any idea what portion of seniors who may be eligible for that program are actually applying or receiving it?
It's a good question. So I know as of the end of last year, I think about 9,500 seniors were on the program in Spokane County, with the minimum income threshold of $40,000. Obviously, there's a bill in Olympia right now that has some traction that may expand those thresholds. So how many more are out there? I don't know off the top of my head, but
Might be good to get an update on that bill. I don't think I heard talk about that bill in our updates.
Yeah.
No, because it's hard to do all the bills that pertain to everyone, so some of the different departments do their own monitoring of the bills that are pertinent to them. So
that's House Bill 1355.
Thank you.
you can certainly check with Mr. Burgess and just see. Otherwise, now that you know the House bill number, you can just go online and see what the status is as well.
And I can check later on this week at LSC and find out if the status is, I know that we did.
I'll look right now. Hang on.
We did have a conversation about this scheduled for way back in the beginning of the session. Yeah, I think LSC weighed in support of the bill and stuff, but there's a lot of stuff that's transpired since then, so I don't even know if it's alive still or not.
Was that to raise the income levels for who's eligible?
Yeah.
So this bill specifically, we're currently under state law, every 5 years, the income thresholds are reviewed. This bill would move it to every 3 years, and then it would move the lowest income threshold from 65% of county median income to 70%.
Yeah,
I think it's,
It passed the House unanimously and had a hearing in the Senate back on the 13th, and it's scheduled for executive session tomorrow in Senate Ways and Means. So it's got bipartisan support. I mean, pretty good mix from all political leanings on each side.
Unanimous sounds pretty good.
Yeah. So. I think I had seen, and I don't remember where I saw it, I don't know if there was an article about this, but I think Spokane County, it was estimating that it would bump us to 44,000, is that right?
around 44 or 45, I think, yeah.
I'm just thinking out loud, but if 9,500 are on the program, do we know how many may be eligible? Is there any way to figure that out that you could think of? Just trying to understand if there's a gap of people not knowing or applying, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, our office and the assessor's office definitely make efforts through our tax bills and other things that go out to make people aware of the program. Yeah, I'd be curious, census data or something may be able to help with that if there's specific communities that are eligible but aren't currently participating. Although the treasurer's office can actually go back retroactively up to 3 years. So if you were eligible under the program requirements in past years, already paid us, that's an example of a refund where you can apply for a prior year, and if you're approved, we'll refund you the difference down the line. So.
Well, and the other thing that'll work against the seniors is that, we also got a bump in Social Security payments earlier this year and stuff. So you got an increase there, you get an increase in the age limit, and you'll still end up neutral. Haven't really fixed the problem. So.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. Okay, so then that's gonna take us to, so Mark Whitelander. There we go. Very good. And Under Sheriff,
And Lieutenant Elliott can't be here, so I'm just here for emotional support.
There you go.
We don't need to sit here at the front of the table where it works best.
I think you're fine there. I think they can see you. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, members of the Board of County Commissioner. My name is Mark Voigtlander, and I'm here to brief you on a particular product. It's an ongoing project that we have with the Department of Homeland Security, specifically a grant that we have that authorizes us to spend $67,000 on upgrading our capability. To give you a little context of why we've had that way, we're using it, give me about 5 minutes to explain. I think almost everyone here remembers 9/11, or at least was alive during that time frame. After 9/11, the 9/11 Commission came up with some ideas or some concepts. One of those concepts that they came up with was the Fusion Center idea. So Washington State got a Fusion Center, and that Fusion Center had some requirements, and those requirements specifically are getting information from local law enforcement, state law enforcement, and being able to pass it on the federal side. So We, the RIG-9, or the Spokane County Sheriff's Office Intelligence and Analysis Group, are part of that fusion center. So we are actually the alternate fusion center. If Seattle were to fall off the map, we would provide those functions for the state. So with that, we have sought and we have been granted monies over the last several years that allow us to have programs and capabilities that mimic what the federal government has that are expensive for local forces. And specifically, the ones that we have used have been, it's a program called Penley. So before we get to that, I guess let's go to, we got this slide right here. So the purchase that we have, this again, the point number one, this is a no-cost purchase to Spokane County. Right? This is all from the grant, and the grant specifically that we requested, and I'll read specifically from that, from the grant paperwork, is this investment supports timely sharing of information, actionable intelligence to ensure partner stakeholders and senior leaders to make informed decisions, cooperation and information with federal partners across all areas of the Homeland Security enterprise, including counterterrorism, cybersecurity, transnational organized crime, critical to operations in the prevention of, preparation for, and protection against, response to acts of terrorism, other threats to life, and criminal acts of targeted violence. And I could go on for what that is, but I think that gives the general feeling of what the money is meant for us to be able to get. With that money, we also find a capability for providing local support to, for instance, major crimes, gang activity. The tools there allow us to analyze disparate forms of data and provide that to and articulate to court and to investigators. And we've used that with great success here in Spokane as well. In addition to that, this funding includes a $10,000 live ping concept. So for instance, last time we would have had capability was a couple weeks ago. Got a call, we had a missing endangered person, which enabled us to then do an exigent request to a cell phone provider to ping the phone, and that then would have been able to go into this program that would have been able to, anybody that was on the search team, be able to see what that location or where that ping is any one time, as opposed to through an email process to one individual and then having to communicate out. So that's part of what this capability looks for too. And ultimately what this program does, Penley and GeoTime, is it aggregates, normalizes, and visualizes data. So it's not, it doesn't give us anything. Whatever we put into it is, it gives us some capability to look at it in a granular level and then be able to point out where it is happening on a map with some degree of accuracy. And this is, just so you know, that the programs that we're looking at getting the additional licenses, Spokane County has used the GeoTime since 2016 to maintain a license PLX since 2019. I think one of the reasons why we're in front of you here today is that GeoTime Penley bought GeoTime. And so now instead of 3 different purchase orders, we have one purchase order of $67,000, which apparently meets a threshold. And so what we would have done before, 3 different vendors is now one. So that's what that is. And ultimately the second phrase is kind of, or the second last page is an indication of what what it looks like, what the final products look like. Upper right hand corner, that's actually a visualization of data that came from Snapchat based on an investigation that we had. Lower right hand corner is the visualization of what it looks like for cell phone data, and then connection data on the bottom area of what it does, of the information. I've used this for an example. We had a homicide investigation, so just not used for terrorism, but had a homicide investigation that had Snapchat, Facebook, cell phone, and provider records. That this brings all of that information together to then be able to look at it in a timeline, which we would then be able to provide, or able to talk about and provide to a court. So that's kind of the main crux of it. Is it's mainly grabs different types of different information, normalizes it so we can look at it in a logical sequence and be able to understand what the data is telling us. That concludes my briefing. Any questions? Questions? Thank you.
Yeah, the limit's 50,000, so once it's
Oh,
over 50.
okay.
That's why you get to come.
That's why it was, all right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay. Next page. Okay, so that's gonna take us to Scott.
Good morning, Commissioners. This conversation is a follow-up to the retreat that the Commissioners had at the beginning of March. And in that retreat, one of the conversations was on the meeting agendas for the weekly Board of County Commissioners meetings. So from the discussion and the feedback, there was some coalescing around a couple of themes that I thought was good to bring back for the board to consider. And I'll just kind of go through this particular attachment that you should have in front of you. All the proposed changes are in blue. Maybe. Do you have a document in front of you that shows the document for proposed changes in blue? There it is. That's the one. Okay. So the first item was just to add some clarity to what the board's regular session was, and the discussion was around changing that to legislative session. So this first section is pretty straightforward. If the board's comfortable with that, we would have a change to the regular session to call legislative session. I think that's the only changes proposed on the first page. We can go to the second page. The other section that was identified during the retreat was, is there a desire or a need to potentially hold or move some items from the legislative session that's currently at 2 o'clock on Tuesdays to a later in the evening time, if there was an item of broad community interest. So those are just my words I have picked here, so feel free to offer some different suggestions. But this particular sentence here just says, the board reserves the right to move an item from its legislative session at 2 o'clock to 5:30 on Tuesday for items that the board determines to have broad community interest. I just picked 5:30. There's nothing magic about that. So feel free to give feedback on if that meets kind of what your recollection was of the discussion, and is the time frame kind of what you're thinking about to be able to move an item out or items out.
I would think maybe rewording that just saying, meeting at 2 p.m. to Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday by a majority vote of the board.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are items that have broad community interest that we may not think need a 5:30 hearing. I mean, a proclamation could have broad community interest. We're not going to move one proclamation to an evening kind of. So I just think striking the last part of that, and just putting, with a majority vote of the board and leaving it at that.
Okay, so 4 items which the board determines by a majority vote.
Or, 4 items, or now just, I'm sorry, hang on one second here.
The 4 items which the majority of the board determines to have broad community interest.
So keep the broad community interest line in there, or just, we have the right to move an item, to 5:30 with a majority vote of the board, or through a majority vote of the board.
Yeah, I'm good with either one.
I'm just that there's going to be some broad community interest. I think there's always something of broad community interest, but we're not going to move all of those to 5:30. So I just,
Right.
do you get what I'm saying?
Well, and anytime we choose to have a 5:30 meeting, it would require a majority vote.
Yeah. So I think that just
Because
changing
that's
that.
where,
would say one commissioner can't choose to have a 5:30 meeting.
Okay,
But yeah.
all right, so I'll strike, after, I'll have it read, the board reserves the right to move an item from its legislative session meeting at 2 p.m. on Tuesday to 5:30 on Tuesday by a majority vote of the board. Okay, and we'll circulate this back around. This is the first touch and getting feedback, and then we'll review it again. Okay, those are the only changes on your legislative session meetings. If we could, let's skip down to, oh, yes, sir.
Before you
Yes.
move on, in the next paragraph, I just want to make sure that we're clear. It says if a meeting occurs on a holiday, such legislative session meeting shall be held on the next business day, which would be Wednesday, or the next consecutive Tuesday at 2 p.m. There's no clarity in terms of when the meeting's going to be. It's going to be, well, it's going to be here or there. And I like the language that Josh was suggesting that says the majority of the board would determine when that meeting is going to be, so that the public has some expectations about when the meeting's going to happen. And the other challenge is if we've got a holiday on a Tuesday, a lot of our other committee meetings meet on Wednesday and Thursday. So we're going to have some other challenges with other committees and stuff. And so I'm not sure that pushing it to a Wednesday is an automatic. And pushing it to the following Tuesday might be the preferred choice. But whatever the choice is, it's got to be a majority of the board that makes that decision.
Okay.
I'd be okay with just saying, we've never
done a Wednesday meeting. So we could just eliminate it and just say it's going to be pushed to the next week, and I'd be fine with that.
I think that's the way to go. I mean,
Otherwise we
people
do a
know
special
we
meeting.
have our legislative meetings on Tuesdays. If we're throwing them on Wednesdays, I don't think we want to do that.
Because otherwise what we've done in the past has been a special meeting like on a Friday if we needed to, especially during the holidays. Kind of thing that it's based on schedules and all of that. We've never just moved it.
And that does reflect your past practices. And when you've published set the meeting times and dates at the beginning of the year, those are always, if there's a Monday holiday, that any meetings on that Monday have always been canceled and then moved to a Tuesday. And you're right, during my time here as well, any Tuesday meeting would have been moved to the next Tuesday.
Yeah, and I mean, other than if Christmas falls on a Tuesday, that'd be the only holiday that I could think of, Christmas and New Year's, which would push anyway. We don't meet during those weeks, so.
Okay,
I think
so I'm hearing strike the on the next business day. So it's explicit that will be on the following Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay. Any other comments on the legislative session? Okay. If we could, let's skip the strategic planning meeting. We'll come right back to that one. Let's go to the BOC briefing meetings. So right now, Commissioner CUNY, looks like Commissioner Waldrop has a question.
Yeah, I can't.
Didn't know she's
Sorry.
with us.
Oh, there she
There we go.
is.
I don't know. I can't see my own window, so I don't know if you can see me. But so does this change mean the strategic planning meetings would be on Mondays, and then we would do our briefings on Tuesdays?
That's where I'm going next. Yes,
Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm ahead of you. Okay,
that's okay. You're reading my mind.
but I just wanted to say I agree with Commissioner French in the conversation about just saying it's the next Tuesday, 2 p.m. It's good to keep it consistent.
Okay. Okay, so today, what's been titled right now, our strategic planning session, that's what we're doing right now. Those are typically board briefings for items that are going to be coming onto your consent agenda or legislative agenda in the upcoming weeks. So it really doesn't, the naming of it really doesn't fit the actual content of it. So my suggestion was to just retitle it BOCC briefing meetings. It can be something different if you want it. And then some of the feedback was having those meetings on Tuesdays in the morning at 9 a.m. That would allow an additional day for the commissioners, should they have questions on the briefing agenda that gets published on the previous week, a chance to meet with staff to ask questions in advance of the briefing. So essentially, the BOCC briefing meetings is every Tuesday at 9 a.m. And then if you go to the next page, it's essentially replicating what was above in the strategic planning meeting, which we'll go back to in a minute. They're held in the commissioner's conference room. It's available via conference calls and virtually via the meeting agenda. States when the meeting agenda will be, how it will be prepared by the clerk, and then posted online by Friday for the following Tuesday meeting. Similar language items could be added to the posted meeting agenda during the meeting. And then if an action is taken during the meeting, it would require public testimony should one of those one-offs come up. And then probably the last one, keeping it consistent again, if a meeting occurs on a holiday, such meeting will be held the next consecutive Tuesday. Just, I would strike, based on the feedback before, strike to be held the next business day.
Couple things for you, Scott.
Yes, sir.
Going back to page 2, it says the board shall hold planning meetings. They're not planning meetings, they're briefing meetings. And so to keep consistent with the title, you should change planning to briefing.
Agreed.
And then on the top of page 3, and you also have this in the section talking about strategic planning, but we can come back to that. Meetings will be held in person. No, we have if that was the case, Amber wouldn't be able to attend and stuff. You've got to allow for Zoom participation as well as in person.
I'm hearing exactly what you're saying. I'm trying to look back on the regular session to see if we have any language in there that's better to reflect it.
But just will be held in person with a virtual option.
Yeah.
That way people know some people are meeting together in person, but there is still that virtual option. Or we can put, will be held in a hybrid model. Yeah, which we have.
It says in the next line, it will also be available remotely via conference call.
Oh, yes, it does.
To a number identified.
Yeah, does that second sentence?
That to specify that it's on
I think
a virtual option, not just a call in.
Yeah.
I think that sentence just needs to be worked better.
Yeah.
Clearer.
Yeah, I just
'Cause
don't
we-
want us to get stuck,
Because
saying we can't participate.
Well, because even prior to COVID, we've always had the call-in conference number. I mean, that's all it was a telephone. There was no video or anything, but now we have that capability. So yeah, we probably want to change that to virtual, which kind of means the whole gamut, whether it's video, audio, or both, so.
We can always define virtual if we need to.
Yeah, but like virtual or telephonic participation is allowed or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that language, that same language here exists up in the legislative session meetings. It exists in the strategic planning meetings, and it'll exist also in your working session meetings. So we'll clean all that up to make sure it's consistently reflected throughout based on the feedback. So I guess the question to all of you is are you okay with moving the briefing sessions for items that will be on your consent or legislative agenda in a future meeting? Are you okay with that being Tuesday at 9 a.m.? So what we're holding today at 9 a.m. on Monday would now be 9 a.m. Tuesday.
Yeah, fine.
I like it. I think it's just all legislative discussion is Tuesdays. I mean, I think that's just, the strategic planning is Mondays. That's for all the things that we're not voting on in the near term, but just being able to define Tuesday all day is legislative. I like that. I think Just makes it easy. It's not like, oh no, we're briefed on a Monday for not the day after, but the following, it's just Tuesdays are legislative, everything. So I like that.
Amber, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I'm fine with the change to Tuesday briefings. I think what we discussed at the retreat was just having some sort of consistent cover sheet or briefing paper that would accompany every item. So then we could just glance over, you know, the item from the sheriff's department, the item from Public Works with the item, the total amount, you know, requested, what it was for, because that would really help me, you know, not have to make a lot of phone calls to different departments. I mean, if we had a cover sheet. So I was wondering if that was something we were still gonna discuss. But I think I'm fine with Tuesday briefings. I agree with Commissioner Kearns. It keeps it consistent with legislative actions and discussion. But what I was hoping for was just like a 1-page that we could have accompany each item. It didn't have to be all the PowerPoints and everything else, but just something that would give us an overview of each item so we could review that on Monday before the Tuesday briefing. Is that something that still work?
So I think, so Scott and I talked about this as you know, that's something I think that trying to figure out how we do it and what we can do so it's easier for staff too. So I think Scott's, you know, thinking about that. Scott, I can let you talk about it, but trying to figure out what, you know, right now we're just trying to get the meetings set up and then kind of work on that piece. But Scott, I'll let you go.
Yeah, we've pulled some of the various kind of cover sheets that some of the departments are using and looking at that for kind of a consistent template. I would plan on bringing something in the next couple of meetings to the commissioners to share with them. I'll circulate something in advance so you can all look at and see if it is kind of meeting the spirit of the information that you'd like to be covered in that. But I was more focused on just the meeting times and stuff in this round, and then a follow-up on the briefing cover sheet. Okay.
Just want to chime in on the Tuesday. I'm okay with it as I really would like the cover sheet to be related to that, because if we don't have a more detailed cover sheet, the agendas that we currently get don't give a lot of detail, right, for the asking of questions on Monday. So if we don't have a better cover sheet process, but we just move the briefings to Tuesday, I don't know that adds a lot. But if we get both, then we do actually get to use that day, right, for the maybe cutting down of unnecessary briefings, because we see a little executive summary ahead of time. So I'm okay with it, but I really think that they're related to each other.
Commissioner French.
So on page 3, 4th paragraph down, 3rd line, you say a final action is where the board will take a actual positive or negative vote. I don't know what other vote there is other than positive or negative. So why don't you just say we'll take a vote, period? Because we could also take a vote to defer. It's some kind of an action, you know, and just, we don't care whether it's positive or negative, just an action.
Right, because you can abstain as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'll help us clean up some other sections as well, because that was in the previous strategic planning meeting. I think it's in another section or work session as well. So we'll take a vote. Okay. Any other thoughts or feedback on this section for the BOCC briefing meetings?
Okay, so just Amber, can you hang on just a second? I just want to clarify. So Commissioner French, where was that again?
So you take the 4th paragraph down, it says any member of the public shall have the right. And you go to the 2nd line, it says a final action is where the board will take an actual positive or negative vote. We can scratch an actual positive or negative and just say, take a vote.
Okay,
Right there, yep.
and then do we need to though, because that's not on our that's not legislative, so it's not consent. Do we need to put in there that we would have to open it up, I'm gonna look to our attorney, open it up for public testimony,
Probably so, yeah.
but we
I would think that that would be.
needed to
yes.
be in here.
Well, it would need to be done, whether or not it needs to be stated. It probably needs to be done.
So we should probably have it better to be in there since it's required as part of the Open Public Meeting Act. So maybe, I mean, this is just our first blush, so just, I would put in a reference to that specific purpose and state that we would, if any action is taken, that we will, meet the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act and take public testimony.
The next line down, it has the next business day, and I struck that
Okay.
out of there too.
Well, there was, I know that there's been discussion in the past about 3 minutes per person testimony, and I know some people like to pool their 3 minutes. So one person can speak for 9, 12, 15 minutes, kind of the, we've discussed in the past putting that at 3 minutes per person.
Is that?
Well, I just noticed that it says a maximum time, not more than 3 minutes shall be allowed for each oral comment. So I know that this is more on, as I read this is more on a vote, it's sort of a public hearing, but
Right, and
I
we
don't
don't
know
do
if
that in our
there's some-
strategic planning, or we don't do that in our briefings.
yeah, no, I just,
That's another
I
briefing.
wanted to point that out. I saw the 3 minutes, and so
Yeah,
that reminded me, I know we've discussed that, and I don't know as we
so we'll need to,
continue to
determine
flip here.
where,
Yeah,
where
open
that really
public,
sits.
open public forums on the next page.
So I will,
And Amber, I will come back to you, Commissioner Waldron.
for some reason, I believe that provision comes out of Robert's rules. So we might want to have to check with Roberts and make sure that, because I think we've got another policy that talks about Robert's rules will be the general guide that we have, and if we're going to deviate from it, we just need to articulate that.
So that would be again, our attorney gets to
That's
look
what
into
he's
that.
gonna do.
I don't know the Roberts rules, that portion of Robert's rules off the top of my head, but I can certainly check on that, and the board can certainly deviate from that as they see fit. But yeah, I will double check on what Robert's rules say on that.
Well, and the other thing is if we are going to change that policy, I think it is on the code of conduct on the wall and stuff, so we might end up having to reprint that and clarify it there too,
Yes, if we choose to do that.
if we choose to do that, yeah.
So I think it's definitely, yes, we had it happen last week, so it's definitely worth looking into if we want to allow for that. So we'll put that as an additional item here, Scott. Okay, Commissioner Waldron, you had your hand up, so I just wanted to finish on that topic.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna comment on that same section, because this whole section is related to the briefing meeting, right?
Right.
Our briefing meetings. Or I can't see above I wasn't sure the blue line, is this all related to our briefing sessions?
Yes, it is.
So so that's where, I think that's where it was getting kind of confusing. During the briefing session, what you were getting at here was if we add an item that wasn't originally added, right, at the briefing session, then you have to open it up for public comment. Is that what we were trying to get at here?
No, it's if we take a vote based on an item that's in the briefing session or the strategic planning session, we have to open it up, to a public vote or public comment, sorry, prior to the vote. So which is new since last June with the Open Public Meetings Act. So requirements, so that's why it hasn't been in here in the past, and we do need to make sure we add it. That if for some reason we do decide that we need to act on something and actually take an official vote, other than on our consent agenda,
that we'll have to open up in any of those meetings to a vote or a public forum.
And there's a couple different ways to tackle it. We've, the language that exists today in the code is any by leave items. This would be a by leave. We individually reference the process under your legislative meetings, your strategic planning meetings, your BOCC briefing, and your working session meetings. Another option is you take those references out of the individual meetings. You just have a header. You have one particular section that discusses by leave items, and so it's all there. So we can do it a couple different ways depending on what the board desires for clarity.
Yeah, well, I think, I don't know. I mean, these are gonna be, we're all gonna be taking these items and thinking about them as we, go forward. It's certainly not a done deal today.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I think we just gotta think through that, what is, traditionally by leave has always been in addition to the agenda item that's posted for the legislative meeting. Anytime we've taken a vote outside of that, it's just, pretty organically happened or happened because there's a need to make sure we get it done like on a letter, approving a letter, right away that we can draft since we're not gonna meet again until the following Tuesday. So those things, I don't know that we consider those by leaves in those other meetings. Because then that gets confusing as to what a by leave is versus just a need to take, a need to take a vote at another, based on a topic that we're discussing in those other meetings.
And it's happened infrequently during this year, but at least having the provision in those individual session meetings allows that to occur should something timely or emergent come up.
Correct.
And yes, just feedback for today, not planning on this being on next week's legislative agenda to approve. It's just the dialogue and the feedback to kind of shape this a little more. And so on the BOCC briefing meetings, I'm hearing generally supportive, but Commissioner Waldron and Commissioner Jordan had highlighted they'd like to have some more dialogue around the consistency of briefing templates to be able to have in place, and then are supportive of moving those to Tuesday mornings.
French.
So this is more cleaning up grammar, but on page 3, and it's probably present in other areas, but page 3, second paragraph, the clerk of the board shall prepare a meeting agenda. Now, it should be the clerk of the board will prepare the meeting agenda. A meeting agenda implies that there's going to be more than one agenda, and that's probably not the case.
We don't want any secret agendas.
No secret agendas and stuff. So, exactly. That's also the case down below where it says the clerk of the board will prepare, same thing, the agenda.
Okay. I've got it. Any other comments on BOCC briefing meeting before we go back up to strategic planning meetings?
So Scott, we're deleting on page 4, the red line, the daily meeting calendar may be amended consistent with the provision, and you're wanting to delete that as with 5 commissioners now. As we see on our agenda meeting this time, you're talking about the daily one. With 5, there's not as many meetings that have more than 1 commissioner or more than 3. And like the health board we're already identified as meeting there. So you're wanting to look at deleting, not publishing this unless we have meetings that have more than 3?
Yeah, that was my suggestion. We've been kind of monitoring this during the course of the first part of the year here. And every meeting that we've seen where 3 or more of the board attends, they are already noticed by another board that you're on. The health district is one example. The health district produces that that meeting schedule, publishes it, and it's open to the public. Steering Committee of Elected Officials, 3 of you are on. Our planning department publishes that meeting, publishes the meeting notice, and has it available in person and online. Skrills is another one. It's publicly noticed by our community services group. So my understanding is that we have already those that are publicly noticed elsewhere. So I bring up the question: is there a need for the daily calendar meeting? It seems to be extra work, redundant, where it's already covered somewhere else. But maybe there's something I'm missing that would not already be separately publicly noticed.
Well, and like this Friday, we've got the legislative virtual update. So those are things that not all commissioners attend. I mean, it's on, everyone has the ability to attend it, but and there's no decisions that are being made by us as a board. So I don't even think we need to identify that because that is just an informational meeting, not a meeting of discussion. So, and I was on it last week and I didn't see any other commissioners on it. So I mean, so it's like, those are the kind of things that I don't think we need to, put out on a public calendar because we're not all attending. I just happen to attend this one, by chance because it fit into my schedule. But so I think we've got to be careful too with some of those that, we're all just invited to, but we're not all attending. So it's like, for it to, if we're going to do this, for it to show up on here, we need to all be in attendance, not just the fact that we could potentially show up together. Commissioner French.
Well, the other functions that we all attend or typically attend, GSI, for instance, will be, at least 3 of us are that. We should notice that, as well as COG and State of the County Address and State of the City Address. So, I mean, there are other events that we attend. COG, we could, if we wanted to, take a vote there, since there's Council of Governments. The others, we won't take any legislative action. So I'm just trying to get back to, supporting what you were saying, Mary.
But I would think we would need to identify the state of the city or the state of the county because we're just there in attendance. We're not
taking action.
Yeah, or discussing business.
No, it's a good point. For that matter, even GSI, that's not going to be.
Right.
Our practice in the past has been, we notice GSI because if, for whatever reason, 2 of us attended a session, that had to be noticed. So I wonder whether that same logic still applies or not. I don't know.
And I don't think so. That's what Scott and I have been kind of, mulling this over, but I don't think so because again, we're attending, we're not, discussing, we're not taking a vote, we're not even discussing business. And 2 commissioners, if you do, 2 commissioners are talking, that's okay now.
Yeah.
Where in the past that would have been considered a quorum.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen where all, more than 3 have gathered at any of these events. So, again, and they're just events. And they're events that are a fee to attend. They're not a virtual option or any of that. So, they're not really, again, meetings that we're doing business at.
Yeah.
So I can see, just only producing the, calendar, really it's a special meeting that would be noticed because there's no other, chamber events. Again, Valley Chamber, they've got their awards dinner Tuesday night. I don't know who's all attending, but, it's,
Yeah.
That's consistent with Chris Anderson and I have chatted about this a little bit as well, and Chris can correct me if I misstate, but as you looked at those GSI, City of Spokane, or State of the City, State of the Valley, whatever happens to be, because it's not a meeting that's being held by the commissioners where you're getting together to talk county business and make decisions on county business, we didn't believe there was a necessity to publish those because you're going to an event. Yes, you're doing it on behalf of the county in your capacity, but you're not holding a meeting to discuss county business. The COG would probably be one of those one-offs where we would notice it. You're under like a special meeting, and so we would still be taking care of all of the requirements to notice when a meeting is going to occur with 3 or more of you to discuss county business and possibly take action.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely correct, and on those meetings that do require a special notice, the weekly calendar really doesn't serve any purpose because it's not going to meet those requirements. So it really is in addition to any other of the legal notice requirements.
So I guess I'm gonna say I agree with deleting that. I just want to make sure that everybody saw that and knows why and talked about it.
Yeah,
Commissioner Jordan?
Yeah, it seems like if we're calendaring a bunch of meetings that people aren't actually attending with a majority, that doesn't make any sense as long as we're just tracking the kind of ad hoc or one-off scenarios where we do need to, that aren't regularly scheduled, right? And I guess the only other scenario would be if there was a meeting that maybe only 1 or 2 were assigned to attend, right, as a committee assignment, but others decided to participate for whatever reason, we may need to just be in communication about that if we happen to be planning to attend the same meeting in that way. Does that make sense? So if I wanted to go to an STA meeting, for example, would I then need to let Gina know and have it noticed if there was going to be 3 of us there?
Because you would just be attending as the public. You wouldn't be attending as a board member
So you're
of
non-voting.
an STA. So you're just then a public participant at the
But I'm still
STA.
I'm still a commissioner, right?
Right, but for STA's purpose, just like at the health district, if you were to attend the health district board meeting, you would be sitting with the public and just be there listening and observing, not a participant of the board. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So unless you're attending as an alternate, which means then somebody else is there. So yes, so you can still do that as the public because you're not a board member. Doesn't matter whether you're a commissioner or not, you're not a board member of STA or the health district board. Right. You're then just there as, even though you might be there as commissioner, you're still sitting with the public and not allowed to participate in the conversation. Does that make sense?
And in that example, the meeting.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't. Al might though.
And that board could choose to have you,
Right.
speak like for the public or that kind of thing, but you're still not there acting as the commissioner making a decision. Chris?
When I look at those legal issues, the frame of reference that I generally look at it is, are you there passively receiving information, or are you there actively participating in a decision-making process, right? And that's kind of how I view the legal difference between those two things and those two roles. And, the commissioners can passively receive information without it being an open public meeting, right? The open public meeting is for the active decision-making process.
And I can talk to you separately as
Yeah,
well, but
absolutely.
this is clearly kind of a remote concern because it hasn't happened and I don't know that it would. But just from my WASAC training that I went to this year, they were very strong about the process of formulating decisions, right, is what's subject to open public meetings. So if I was attending let's say planning commission meeting or something to kind of gather information about a decision that could come later, I just wonder if that could fall under it, but it may be a legal question that we can talk about later. So I'm just flagging that, no big deal, just wanted to put it on radars as a thought.
And the good thing in both of those situations that were just identified, those meetings are already publicly noticed. So we already have covered the OPMA acts. STA follows it. We follow it for our plan commission. We follow it for our steering committee of elected officials. So those are already publicly noticed. So I think we'd be able to check the box on that. Okay, any further discussion on this?
Commissioner French.
Well, I just offer a caution, is that if you decide that you do want to attend one of the committee meetings, that it be very clear that you are, as Commissioner Cooney said, there is a member of the public, not as commissioner. And I'll give you a good example. We had a situation where there was a shooting request that was made, and I was included in the litigation, even though I didn't attend the meeting. And the accusation was that I tried to influence the committee. And so your presence can influence a land use decision if it was a planning commission meeting, and then you become subject to the litigation beyond your role as a county commissioner. So, yeah, you don't want that. I mean, fortunately, the court threw the case against me out, and but just as caution, don't get caught by that, because it's very unnerving.
See Jessica going, oh goodness.
And I was just using that as a random example.
Yeah.
So clearly there's
Is
a
that
story there.
good advice?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got one.
Okay, Scott, any,
Okay, if we could go back up to the strategic planning meetings 101, 015.
I was gonna say, we're already past that, so we can't go back.
Well, I reserved, I thought I reserved the right to go back. So this was discussion around really having a targeted session or sessions during the month to focus only on longer term strategic planning initiatives and activities that the county was working on. These could be viewed as, a couple hour briefings on a particular topic, a lot of dialogue, a lot of input coming back and forth. Not something that's going to be coming on your agenda in the next week or two, but really focusing on, key 4, 5, 6 strategic planning items that the board wants to be focusing on in those. So without going, one of the things that I had suggested is, if you agree with that, once we get that set up, then one of our first meetings that we hold is establishing what those list of topics might be. So this is really just setting the framework of it. And there's a couple decision points in here. The strategic planning meetings, Monday is the available time because Tuesday morning would be now utilized by the VOCC briefing meetings. So a question to the board is, one, do you want to do that? Two is, if you do, a suggestion was maybe twice a month. So could be the first and third Monday of the month. It could be the second and fourth. And then the other decision point is, would you want it at 9 a.m. or would you want it at 2 p.m. on whichever Mondays you choose? So that's just an area for feedback from the commissioners, and we'd also clean up some of the language in here that we've already identified in some of the previous sections.
Commissioner French.
So I think it's more transparent and predictable for the public if we say it's either going to be first and third or second and fourth, and don't leave it as loose, because when it's loose, then we're going to get somebody that said, yeah, but you used to, and then we're going to get crucified for no good deed goes unpunished. And then the other thing is the provisions about voting. We're not going to be voting at planning meetings. And so I'm not sure, the provision that talks about the fourth paragraph down, 1, 2, 3, fifth paragraph down says, final action is where the board will take an actual positive or negative vote. We're not going to be voting at planning meetings, so why would we have that language in there? So
again, I could see, since we're meeting, if something timely came up that we needed to, just having the ability to do that.
would we do that at the briefing?
At the next Tuesday, the following day, Tuesday. But I could see if we've got some letter that's come up, that we need to just start working on rather than waiting a full day. I don't know.
Yeah, well, no. I mean, this is good. I guess in my mind, what I was thinking that the strategic planning meetings were about talking about things that were 30, 60, 90 days out that we needed to start talking about. And I guess, maybe a good item would be the regional homeless thing, but maybe it's something else that's gonna be out there that we need to start planning for. Housing, what are we gonna do with housing? That's something we're not gonna take an immediate vote on. So that's just my interpretation. So if my interpretation's wrong, I need to adjust, that's
No,
fine.
No, I think that's probably correct, but I'd rather just reserve the opportunity.
Well, but the way it's written is any member of the public shall have the right to submit oral testimony to the board before the board takes final action on any item on the meeting agenda. So there wouldn't be any final action items on a agenda.
I think that's
There
part
may
of
be the,
legislative.
well, no, it's under the
It's
strategic planning.
in here.
Too.
It's
the
in part of
last.
this language.
But see, we're not taking final action.
No, but then the following one is a final action is where the board takes a, positive and negative vote, maximum time, but so that needs changed in this section.
Yeah, I think,
Then.
this whole section would need to be really looked at as to what, it's not a normal meeting.
No.
So there wouldn't be final action on an agenda, but I get what you're saying, there could be something, somebody drops the ball and it's like, hey, time sensitive, sorry we didn't get this, please take a vote right now, but that wouldn't be on a pre-printed agenda, that would be more of a spontaneous, someone finally comes to us and said,
Or I could see, if we have a discussion on the new facility, do we need to actually take action to, as we're discussing it, to have staff go forward?
Yeah.
If we determine that we need 3 commissioners, we want a majority of the board, or all 5 commissioners to say yes, instead of just a head nod, that if they really need action versus just a head nod, then that would provide us that ability. So I hate to take it out, I don't think we would use it very often, but even on the homeless, I could see where maybe Gavin's coming to present, and it's like, we do need to take action versus
Respond to it.
just a head nod, because a head nod isn't action.
It's just
strictly speaking.
It's a movement of muscles and body parts.
Close your eyes at the same time.
So I just think it'd be
Say
better to
magic
reserve
words.
the opportunity versus just take, otherwise we wouldn't have that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to, while it generally 99% of the time wouldn't be utilized, having it there in the event you do need to utilize it probably makes sense. So is there any thoughts to Commissioner French's question? The intent here was to pick either the first or third and only have that in there, or the second and fourth, not have both. And then only select the 9 a.m. or only select the 2 p.m. and not have both in there. So feedback on which Mondays of the month and at what time?
So I will say, I was just trying to look at that, just because with GSI, like I have it today at noon, so I've got to be downtown by noon. So I guess have commissioners look at their calendars and, get back to you on that, because I was trying to look, but it's like they've changed their calendar structure too, so I don't know which day it is at this point, but that's the one that would potentially be a conflict, whoever is on GSI then in the future. I would say I'd rather do 9 o'clock in the morning, whichever, sequence we decide. I'd rather have us be here in the morning. And that way then it allows us that if we need longer time, if it's
Continue it.
yeah, we can continue it to the afternoon. If it's like I can see us doing that during budget. Season, that it's gonna be longer than just the morning.
So if GSI meets today, so it's the 4th Monday then?
Well, executive
Or-
committee, but they've changed the meetings that they're like quarterly.
Oh,
I don't know, so it's like
Okay.
I haven't been able to make the meeting yet. So this is my first one to attend one of the board meetings, but they're trying to reduce, so they're not monthly.
Yeah, they've changed the format.
Okay, so I was gonna say, cause if it's a fourth, we could just do first and third for ours, which would also help with the Valley Chambers. Their Government Affairs Committee is the second Monday, so we'd avoid Valley Chamber and GSI conflicts if we did first and third. So,
I will see. I mean, so let's tentatively, I mean, I'm happy to, tentatively say first and third, but I just wanna check through the calendar and see, trying to do it on my phone doesn't work as well as, the computer. So, but then I would stick with the 9 AM again, just because I think then that gives us the opportunity to, go into the afternoon if we need to. Amber, I can't see.
She hopped off.
Oh, she's off. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so pinning that one right now, pending you all looking at your calendars. And then I think that is the only other section that was updated, but I wasn't sure if you wanted to go in and talk a little about your open public forum or if that was already going to be, Chris mentioned he was going to look at some Robert's Rules and Orders that may inform on the ability to have people cede their time to another individual versus it's 3 minutes per person. But those were my only updates for it.
I got it. Okay.
And Jim Kaufman is pretty solid on his Robert's Rules too.
No, I'm sure we'll nail down what the Robert's Rules say. And then
Yeah.
we can decide how to proceed on that.
It was interesting. So I did just take a class through the Rassic Parliament on chair. So we can talk about that, but.
What was in?
So
Did she speak about this?
She didn't speak about the 3 minutes.
Yeah.
But she did speak about if somebody is actually being obnoxious and all of that in the comment, you can't stop them because of First Amendment. So that may be something we need to look at in our.
So we dealt with this once before, and so unless the law has changed, it's one of the reasons why we post the rules of conduct is because that provides the rules for the forum to exercise your free speech. And so when you violate the rules, then the chair does have.
It was interesting. She a couple of people asked specifically about
Interesting.
it, and she was like,
Then how does the chair control the meeting?
the time allotted is the time allotted, and you just sit there and listen, is what she said. And then you gavel them closed at the end of it.
You can gavel and close.
At the end of the 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Yes. You can gavel or,
Yeah.
politely say your time is up, which I try to do.
it's interesting, I mean,
but
cause I've seen
she-
meetings from all over the country where when someone starts, attacking, making personal attacks to
Yeah.
somebody on the I mean, their mic is cut, that's interesting.
And we could, but she was like, because someone has even asked, and it was there was people from all across the nation, California and stuff on this call. She did speak to that, even foul language, you couldn't stop it. So it's just something, I'm just throwing it out there because that was like news to me. And happy to have Anne, if you wanted to come and talk to us, and stuff. So anyway,
But that does raise another question, though. We have had meetings where we've had to have security in the chambers during the meeting because we knew that there was going to be someone that was going to be disruptive or has the potential of being disruptive and stuff. So do we want, I'm not campaigning for this, I'm just raising the issue. Do we want to have some provision in here to allow for having security in the chambers to assist the chair in dealing with disruptive members or not?
I think we probably will want to look at that because remember back to the Hearst decision?
Yeah.
That was a very contentious meeting. I wasn't commissioner, I was just attending and felt unsafe.
Yeah.
Because one of them we held at the Water Resource Center.
Yeah.
Which
which doesn't have the same security as the, so anyway, I mean, that definitely could be something to think about as we do that, but and if we have rules of decorum, I'm not sure that would supersede the First Amendment, so.
Certainly, there's a basis to stop somebody or remove somebody if there's any threats. That there is no First Amendment right to threaten somebody. So if there was a threat to safety or security, that would be a basis to move forward. I would be interested to see any materials that you got.
Yeah, they were recording it, so I may not in that part, but I'm happy to ask caller directly, but
sure.
It was just interesting to me that she was pretty adamant, because there was a couple of council members from California that were just like, how do you stop this? And she's like, you don't.
Yeah.
You have to just listen, based on their time. And we certainly haven't really identified, because like at the health district, it's 3 minutes per person, up to 15 minutes total. We haven't had that issue for a long time. Some people allow where if it's 15 minutes total, you can go to, if a lot of people are signed up, you can go to a minute per person. That is determined at the meeting.
Or you take 15 at the beginning, and anybody that doesn't get into that 15 can do open public for at the end of the meeting or something.
So I think we just have to, those are things to really think about as we look at open public forum. What we're gonna do, or just continue. I mean, I'm happy to continue in the way we're doing it now. We don't have that many people that are there to speak for that long, so, but I mean, you go back to the Hearst decisions and those meetings, and there's a lot of angry people when you talk about water. You're new, Commissioner.
I wasn't,
Oh, no, you weren't.
no, but I was there.
He was there.
That's right, I remember.
I didn't feel
Commissioner.
scared. It was exciting. It's like, wow, people really care about this. I was running for office at the time, but yeah, I was there watching.
I know that on a couple of the other boards I sit on, the language with regard to the public testimony is 3 minutes or at the discretion of the chair. And so it gives you the flexibility to say, okay, we're only gonna limit you to 1 minute, or, if need be, you can back two people together or whatever. But having that language so that it gives you specifically that authority to be able to make that decision, then it's up to the prerogative of the chair to determine.
Yeah. So I just would like to make sure we're just as flexible as possible, in what we're doing since we're looking at this, but because does any of this speak to the decorum?
Your
I haven't
open
read
public
through.
forum is on page 4.
Right.
No, commissioners, there's a separate resolution that you had passed multiple years ago that talked about the decorum. It's not in this particular section of the code.
Okay.
Well, but you do have in the last paragraph on page 4, no person may use the public forum to speak on any matter, such matter as to violate the laws governing conduct of public meetings. And so I don't know if there are any laws that deal with conduct during the meetings, that state statute. But I mean, it may be at the absence of something at the state level. What would happen if we adopted something at the county level?
I think as long as it was consistent with anything at the state level, I'm not aware of any RCWs that would directly regulate a county, conduct at a county commission meeting. There may be statutes and or WACs regulating conduct or decorum at the state level meetings. But I'm not aware of anything directly at the state level that would regulate conduct at the local level.
And it would
in this
be
regard.
conduct for the public testimony piece, not
Right.
floor speak.
And so in my mind, that would
That
simply
has its own
be,
content.
right, that would simply be your general, I guess, kind of criminal issues as far as a threat, as far as something to that level that would be a basis for removing somebody from a public forum.
So at the top of page 5, first paragraph, it says that if somebody's submitting something in writing, they have to submit 5 copies. That was when we were a commission of 3. Now that we're 5, that should be 7 copies, because you got 1 for the clerk and 1 for the attorney, and then 1 for each one of the commissioners.
Yeah, section 3 under open public forum talks about limitations.
Yeah.
And where it says, no person may use the open public forum to speak in any matter or in such a manner that violates the laws governing conduct of public meetings. For example, the public forum cannot be used as a member of the public to adversely affect the fairness of a current or pending adjudicative proceeding, nor shall it be used for political campaigning. That's really all the reference there to it.
We need to strike that last political campaigning. No, just kidding. I'm just
Anyway,
kidding.
I just kind of wanted to bring that forward because I was surprised by it. So,
That is-
since it is part of this. Okay.
I don't have anything further, Commissioner. Thanks for all the feedback.
Okay, very good. So then we have a couple of miscellaneous items. So in front of you is a proclamation that just came to us that we do want to, for the National Correctional Officers and Employees Week, which we've done this in the past. Jared, can this be approved next week, or does it need to be approved tomorrow?
We were just planning on approving it for April 11th.
Okay.
It certainly could be for next week, but we have 3 other proclamations that'll be read that week. This week doesn't even start till May, so I figured April 11th.
Okay.
Maybe it's gonna do it.
Sounds good.
It does need to be updated just a little bit, but that's the basis of what we'll use for that proclamation.
Do you want April 11th or do you want even later? Because the week is May 7th to 13th. Do you want it closer to the actual week?
Yeah.
I mean, rather than a month in advance?
This is what we did last year, and
Was it? Okay.
there's a lot of publicity that we try to get around that week anyways.
So
We're
why don't
just
we,
thinking to get it.
can we do it on the 18th? That's kind of 2 weeks ahead, and or since we're out the following week.
Yeah, that works too.
Place it on the 18th. Mike, is there any?
I'll let Don know.
That just gets it a little closer. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to just update you guys on, we are changing the ribbon cutting for the Doris Morrison Learning Center to April 19th at 11 o'clock. We'd scheduled it for the first week of April, which is spring break, and we're getting a lot of comments that people are gonna be gone and out of town. And then also with the delayed winter is causing some delays in construction, so we are, we'd already sent the notice out for this, I think the 6th of April, but we will be moving that to the 19th at 11 o'clock. Yes. I think with the, we just keep having this wet weather and all of that. Plans are getting everything finalized, it's gonna work out better to do it. And then on the 22nd, which is that Saturday, will be the grand opening for the public, which is Earth Day, which I think will be great, and we'll be there. So it puts it closer to that too, which I think then helps with the media talking about that.
So it's still, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my calendar. So 19th is 11 o'clock?
11
still?
o'clock.
It works, because 3 of us will already be out in the valley for steering committee of elected officials.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
Halfway there.
Okay. Very good. I apologize that I was not checking everyone's calendars on this, that it was kind of, there was limited opportunities, and we're excited that that is gonna be in my spotlight coming up too, so excited about that. is actually gonna host their wedding anniversary at the Doris Morrison Learning Center in May. So have our first event out there.
Kind of a deal on the rental rate.
Yeah, exactly. And then I was just gonna let you know that I did do this chair training with Anne, I can't think of Anne's last,
McFarland.
There we go, with Jurassic Parliament, which was good. It was an hour and 15 minutes. She's great. So a couple things that I learned was that I already spoke about it with open public meetings and people speaking. And then the other thing was just she was a real stickler that we need to, which you guys are pretty good about, we're all pretty good about, really letting the chair help guide the meeting by, addressing the chair first, and making sure that it's, it's not as conversational, that the points are getting made, and then the chair should be paying attention to people that are not speaking, to let people speak that haven't spoken before we start, having someone do a lot of talking. So I'm just saying that out loud, that was one of the things that I think I don't know, I think our meetings flow pretty well. So I'm not too worried about it, but it is just interesting that she was a big fan of, we need to make sure, she had a whole chart, like to make sure, check off when people are speaking, but just to make sure that everybody's voice is being heard. So that was kind of one of the things that it's 5, it is, a little tougher. So I will say, that just to, make sure that you address the chair first, so that way we can keep the questions and comments and all of that flowing. Okay. Sounds good. But I'm not gonna have a check off sheet. So.
Can we record time of how long?
Exactly.
Sorry, Commissioner French.
All right, now wait.
Speaking of free speech.
You're free to leave anytime.
And we can have our own decorum, because it is not, we are not here as free speech. We are here as trying to conduct business and get business conducted. So it was, like I said, that was just interesting.
Or if you call on someone, you start their timer.
I know.
You have 3 minutes.
Yes.
Get through it.
And I think that's part of the open public forum that we should talk about too, not today, but just to be thinking about is, as we saw last week, where we had the lady in the audience who, you want to help address questions, but then you can't, at some point you just got to say, we can't do this. So it's just interesting. And then she didn't want to come down, to speak. So it's like, if you would have just come down, you could ask the question and we could see if someone could answer that question for you outside of the meeting.
She did not want to come down the mic.
Yeah, no. So, so I'm, so it was good for have a couple of those situations before the training to kind of figure out how to handle it, and that I can be, 3 minutes and try to, let them finish, or if I can see they're not finishing, try to interrupt to say that their 3 minutes are over. If you would like me to be more stringent, I can get a gavel and be more stringent, or if you feel like we're handling it okay, I just want to throw that out there, that we just think about that it seems like we've done okay so far, because you do want people to feel heard, but not, they can't go on and on and on. So, and I don't know if at the end of the 3 minutes we can do like a little timer sound that can go off.
Let's give Ron a bell.
How about? Because that would be the better ways if there's a timer on it.
I've tried to do the audio with the laptop. I can't, the way I control it, but we can figure something else out maybe.
Okay, because I think that just helps, Commissioner
Well,
French.
I know we've talked about this in the past, but it's been a while, is at the end of the 3 minutes, the mic shuts off and stuff, and so.
Zoom, that's easy to do. In the room.
Can't do it in the room
I
yet.
could have to to come off.
Well, you're right there.
Just reach up.
Reach up and just hit the button.
So like I said, just things I, was learning, and, just making sure, we
it is up to all of us to make those decisions on how we want to do it, but then it's up to the chair during the meeting to be the one doing it, so I just wanted to put that out there for everybody so we can just be aware. You get to run the meetings next week.
I'm gonna put people on the clock, and if they get off track, be like, reclaiming my time. All right, and we'll just be
Get a bell.
fun. Yeah, bring me a bell, Ron.
And
A foghorn.
Yeah, and last week, the gentleman definitely went to his full 9 minutes. There was not a minute left. So anyway, and I think we do need to think of if we want to, they can only do it once, so it's only 6 minutes total, that they could allocate their time to somebody else, kind of thing. So I think those are good things for everybody to think about.
Yeah. I mean,
I was just gonna say, in the elections office, we don't allow any allocation of time. You just get 3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think part of it, it's like, because those people come to the meeting, it's like, if you have something to say, come up and talk to us. It's like, don't be afraid to speak with us.
Yeah.
If you have something you want to tell us, it's like, don't make someone else say it on your behalf. You're more than welcome to come up and talk to us. We're normal people, just like everybody else. You don't have to. You don't have to be scared of us.
And if they know it's only 3 minutes, then as we've had at the health district where people then know that they go, okay, here's my 3 minutes. They have a written speech that goes longer, and they've got, here's my 3 minutes, here's your 3 minutes, here's your 3 minutes, remember?
Forgot about
Yeah.
that. Yes. It would be
That
like
happens
one
too.
15-minute speech and 5 people reading it. Where they'd stop, the next person would come up and start the next one. It's like, clever.
So it is, but again,
that.
things for us to think about just to keep the
Loopholes,
purpose.
loopholes.
Yeah, that was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
Very pre-COVID. That was a long time ago, but yeah, they used to do that. Yes, it was. Mumps, yeah, I think is what we're dealing with.
That's when their favorite topic was fluoride.
Well, no, it's vaccines after that,
Yeah.
so yeah. Okay, so to continue the meeting, because I apologize, we're now over, so 11:17. So, okay, Jessica,
Commissioner,
Commissioners, or Scott, sorry.
had one quick miscellaneous. If Kyle's in the room, I wanted him to share some good news on the Public Works facility project that he heard last week.
So Friday morning, our team presented to the project review committee, the committee that's there by the CPARK's designation to authorize use of alternative delivery. We were successful in our presentation. We got a unanimous approval and received some very impressive comments from the committee. That was one of the best presentations they'd seen in some time. They were I was pretty shocked as I sit on a lot of these. They were incredibly supportive of the project. We received a unanimous vote of support. We have a letter coming, but we're allowed to proceed anytime.
Very good. That is exciting. Great.
Okay, so then that's gonna take us to executive session. So I'm just gonna check, so there's no other matters that are gonna come before the board today, is that correct? Other than executive session?
So
Okay, so then, after executive session, we will be adjourning the meeting at that point, but we will now, Chris and Jessica, I'll let you talk about the purpose.
Thank you, and this is gonna be an executive session on pending potential litigation under RCW 4231.10(1)(I). Persons present should be the board, the CEO, Scott Simmons, myself, Jessica Pilgrim from my office, and Scott Chesney from building.
And we'll actually take Randy Bischoff as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and
35 minutes.
35 minutes. And, thank you, and so then it is, I'm gonna say 11:20. And we'll be in executive session for 35 minutes. I will be leaving at probably 11:40. So then Commissioner Kurtz will be taking over as chair at that point in time. But we will be adjourning at the end of the executive session. No action.
No action.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, and we'll see you tomorrow.